Anything? Here,
I'm good.
No.
I'm good. Thank you, buddy.
Mic check, Lindsay.
Mic check. 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 7 9 22.
Camera 3.
We got it. Okay.
Just a test. This is just a test.
Sports Talk Live Buffalo is sponsored by Celino Law.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
Sports Talk Live Buffalo is sponsored by Celino Law.
Welcome to another special pregame edition of Sports Talk Live Buffalo. I'm John Scott, live from inside M&T Bank Stadium here in Baltimore ahead of the Bills and the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football, a game you will see in not too much longer right here on Channel 2. So much to get to set the table, as I know you're chomping at the bit to get things kicked off. But let's continue to talk a little bit about what might be in store. We have a loaded up show here. We're going to get some keys to the game from our Lindsay Moppert, our Jonathan Acosta, sitting down with Khalil Shakir, who is on a heck of a heater to start this season. But first, let's really dive into some of the key topics of this one with our Vic Carucci, the Hall of Famer, joining me here. And Vic, you have an article out on our website, WGRZ.com, and it says at the beginning, you don't think the Bills need to win this game to necessarily make a statement that they are truly one of the best teams in football. Explain why.
Yeah, I'm convinced. I know 3-0 and it's still early, and a lot of things can go off the rails with a quick start. But I'm seeing a complete football team. I'm seeing a team that has played well, and even if we want to say the competition hasn't been so great for the most part, they've played well above the level of that competition. And I certainly don't see the Ravens as providing a litmus test that I think a lot of people nationally, maybe even some locally, but for the most part nationally, believe these Ravens are like, okay, they're supposed to be the team contending for a championship. And I frankly, that conversation did not age well. They're 1-2, and they haven't played particularly well.
Well, the Bills have been playing well, Vic, and it's to no surprise. Josh Allen is leading the way. This is a conversation you and I and Adam have had leading into this season, that without the names of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and other key pieces from the past being around him, Allen was going to need to elevate his game if this offense was going to be elevated to continue to produce like we've seen in the past. He's doing exactly that. We saw the passing game really, really take off against Jacksonville. Do we need to see that same recipe tonight against Baltimore?
Yeah, John, and I think we will because the Baltimore defense is going to invite that. They are at the bottom of the league in pass defense. Their secondary has had all sorts of problems against teams throwing it on them and getting those deep shots, especially. They're just not and they're not a very disciplined group. You know, drawing the penalties that they draw. They let up leads, and we saw it against Dallas. They almost blew that game largely because of a secondary that can't clamp things down, a defense that can't close teams out. I think the best avenue for success for Josh Allen and this offense is to do precisely what they did against Jacksonville. Spread the field, get a lot of different receivers involved, create the pressure there with short intermediate passes to begin with, gain that confidence, and then boom, just go after him deep.
Vic, it's frankly shocking. The reputation we've known of the Ravens almost the entirety of their franchise history is an incredibly strong defense and kind of figuring it out with a power running game and whatnot offensively. But as you mentioned, their pass defense dead last in the NFL, but they still are stout against the run. Does that mean you completely abandon James Cook, or do you try to force that hand early to set up the pass, as we've seen through the first three games that Joe Brady likes to do that?
Yeah, John, I wouldn't be abandoning the run at all. The Bills have a solid run game with James Cook, with Ray, Ray Davis. They can move the football there, and frankly, the Joe Brady approach to that offense is balance. And you establish that, you give your offensive line, which has played exceptionally well, you give it a chance to build its confidence by running the football. And I think if they can impose a little bit of will, it won't be easy. The Ravens' defensive front is pretty strong, but if they stay persistent with that, at least give the Ravens something to think about with that, then I think it can open things up for the pass.
On the other side of the ball, we know the number one factor for the Ravens offense, and that is the reigning and two-time MVP, Lamar Jackson. The dual threat ability, arguably the greatest running quarterback this game has ever seen. What is the challenge and what is the right approach, Vic, I would say, to them trying to put pressure on Lamar while also not opening up any lanes for him to hit home runs?
Yeah, well, you start, of course, every conversation about the Ravens' success starts there. Two-time MVP, and deservedly so for his regular season performances, including last season. But he's such a dynamic player, and he will incorporate those runs. I mean, that is an essential part of their offense, and that is a difficult thing to handle because somebody is not really dealing with him. Your defenders are tied up with everybody except the quarterback when it comes to running. So that'll be the constant challenge he presents. However, I think if you're going to win a game where the other team can throw the ball on you, namely the Bills, you better be able to hit those shots, hit those pass plays. And I'm not sure on a consistent basis, I haven't seen it yet, that Lamar is going to be able to do that.
Vic, should Bobby Babich implore a spy for a lot of tonight's game against Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, it's conventional to do that, to have that defender. And this is the other thing that I think works well for Buffalo, John, is that they have speed on this defense. It's maybe not the biggest unit, and of course that'll raise the questions about Derrick Henry and his power and explosiveness handling that. But when it comes to Lamar Jackson, you're not necessarily going to run with him. He's a freak when it comes to his ability to run with the ball. But I think containment and the speed that the Bills have, especially when they go to some of those dime packages that they have where the smaller players are stout enough to deal with the run, get ball carriers on the ground, make tackles, and tackling is going to be a huge, huge factor for Buffalo's defense tonight.
You mentioned Derrick Henry. I know when a lot of Bills fans hear that name, they immediately go to that image of Josh Norman getting bodied in that Tennessee game not too many years ago. He's now on the Ravens, and when he was signed, we'd heard guys like Von Miller this week say he watched the opening drive against the Kansas City Chiefs and was thinking, this Lamar and Derrick Henry 1-2 punch is scary and going to be a problem. What have you seen through 3 games of a running back that a lot of people, and I'll put myself in that boat, thought at 30, maybe he's going to be hitting that number and starting to fall off a cliff? Yeah,
no player really ages well in football, generally speaking, especially the running back position. There is a limited life. Now, he's extended beyond that and expanded that number, and he's a great talent. He's a Hall of Fame player, no question. However, I think 2 things. One, yeah, his power matters, and against that same sort of smallish defense that the Bills will have out there, he can have some success running the football. But that said, if their recipe for this game, Baltimore's, is to just try to pound the ball with Derrick Henry all night, that I think it plays right into Buffalo's hands, because again, I think the Bills' offense is going to be more of a quick striking, more aggressive through the air type of game. And look, Henry had a really good game against Dallas, his only good one of the 3 he's played so far after a slow start where he combined for like 31 carries the first 2 games and then had 25 against Dallas. But Dallas is not a measuring stick for stopping the run. Their run defense is pretty soft.
Finally, real quick, Vic, Von Miller a sack in each of the first 3 games here for the Bills. A lot of question marks, especially after a season with none a year ago, what he would be able to do this year as he's now in his mid-30s. What have you seen from Von Miller, and is it enough to believe this guy could be Von Miller, the one they signed just a few years ago?
Oh, there's no doubt it's encouraging to see what Von has been able to do at this stage of his career, the injury history, all of that. He has come back and he's making an impact, but it's an impact that I think is driven by the success of others. I think really Greg Rousseau has been a catalyst, Ed Oliver to a great degree in the middle, even AJ Epinesa to a great extent, that opponents have more than one guy to worry about. And I think Von can cash in and so many opportunities, and also give credit to Bobby Babich, to Sean McDermott as well, from a coaching standpoint of how they are utilizing Vaughn, how they are limiting the amount of snaps that he has so as to not overuse him at this point.
It certainly has been encouraging to see that. Thanks, Vic. We will bring him back in the show for some final thoughts and predictions. But next, we're going to get a little pulse of Bills Mafia, who traveled in droves, as you can imagine, here to Baltimore to see their team play here on Sunday Night Football. We caught up with some of them in the Fells Point area, and here's what they had to say.
The matchup between two really good quarterbacks. We have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and can't wait to see them compete.
Baltimore is a great city, and they have great fans too, and they're very polite and respectful, so it's just fun coming out and watching the game.
This is my second time being at the Ravens Stadium, so it's, I don't know, I just enjoy watching them, especially in person. It's different than watching it on TV.
It's insane, you know, I was fortunate to go to London last year, and even to see the amount of Bills fans in London was just crazy. And, you know, Baltimore's not that far. It's a quick plane ride or drive. It's just insane how well we all travel.
And Baltimore, not the only place the Bills Mafia is coming together for this Sunday Night Football matchup. Back home in Lancaster, they're shutting down the street and having a massive party there as the Bills and Ravens set to kick off, I'd say, in about an hour and a half at this point right here on Channel 2. We caught up with some fans at that watch party as well.
It's Bills Day, baby. This is where we're at. We're the whole new block party in the Village Lancaster now. We're getting it rolling. These guys really took it off and getting these projector screens up, ready to get some fans in the Village for the Bills game.
It's cool to see the Village come alive. I think it's pretty awesome. I think a lot of communities are going to see this and go, oh, how do we do something like that? So personally, it's good. You know, it's amazing to get the Village bumping like that.
Excuse me. Wow.
Whether near or far, I promise you, Mafia, you've been waiting all day for Sunday night, and the wait is almost over. We're going to switch gears back to the football side of things with some keys to the game.
Play of the Game, sponsored by Reimer Home Services.
Of course, there hasn't been any plays because this is a pregame show, so we're kind of manipulating things here, but our Lindsay Moppert going to enter the conversation with her own keys for tonight's matchup between the Bills and the Ravens.
Through 3 weeks of regular season play, the Bills defense has successfully locked down Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, and Trevor Lawrence. The three quarterbacks combined for a completion percentage of over 62%, 3 touchdowns, and 5 turnovers in those matchups. This week, though, is arguably the Bills' biggest test yet. The Ravens feature several star weapons on their offense, starting with their quarterback and 2-time NFL MVP Lamar Jackson. Jackson, of course, known in the league as a multi-dimensional threat, especially for what he can do in the ground game. Now you mix that with what Sean McDermott called a marriage made in heaven between Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield. The Bills defense knows that they're going to have their hands full on Sunday night. Henry is now ranked 5th in the league in rushing with 281 yards and tied for first with 4 rushing touchdowns. As a team, the Ravens lead the NFL with almost 6 yards per carry. Now, if the Bills defense can successfully lock down or limit the duo of Jackson and Henry in the run game, it would go a long way for Buffalo's run to a 4-0 record. For now, on your side in the studio, I'm Lindsay Moppert, Channel 2 Sports.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Still more to come here on a special pregame edition of Sports Talk Live. Boys, Khalil Shakir just catching everything thrown his way. Our Jonathan Acosta sitting down with him heading into this game, and we'll hear that story from the Bills wide receiver when Sports Talk Live returns.
Now back to Sports Talk Live Buffalo, sponsored by Celino Law. Player of the Game, sponsored by Ivy League Construction.
Our player of the game heading into Bills and Ravens is going to be Khalil Shakir. He is the one who's eating more than everybody when it's the everybody eats mantra on this Bills offense. 14 receptions for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. If Shakir catches one more pass on his first target here this evening, he will set an NFL record. 28 catches on 28 straight targets. Our Jonathan Acosta catching up with the Bills wide receiver this week.
So much throughout the offseason and going into this season, we heard about the everybody eats mentality for this offense. But kind of one thing to have that motto going into this season, and then it's another thing to see it kind of play out the way that it has. What's kind of been the key to making that sort of come to life and you guys executing that offensive vision so well?
Yeah, I think the way just that room is, the receiver room is put together and the offense is put together is that at any given time, anybody can make a play, and that's what makes the group so dynamic, so unique, and so special, is that we're all doing what we can to make sure that when we don't have the ball, that whoever does have the ball, they make the most of that, and everybody's doing their 1-11. If you don't have the ball, run to the ball and get a block, we call it, touchdown blocks. Or when you do have the ball and your opportunity does come, making the most of it. It's a lot of selfless people just throughout the whole offense. I think that's what makes it work.
Your balance, your ability to stay on your feet after taking a hit and everything. I was talking with Keon yesterday, and he said it's like watching a bad little kid run. They make fun of you guys.
Yeah.
What goes into being able to stay on your feet and kind of produce that rapidly?
Yeah, I think half of it is just being a ball player, but I do think the other half is my off-season work with Eric Moulds. I work with him a decent amount in the off-season. He lives 10 minutes from me in South Carolina, so I work out with him every day, and just the work that we've been putting in, I've been working out ever since I got into the league in the off-season. Whether it's balance, catching, and just the drills that he's, kind of put into our everyday work, I think kind of goes with kind of what's showing now. So I got a lot of love for him and a lot of, appreciate him a ton, just for, working with me. So yeah, he's great.
How cool is that, you're obviously kind of one of the big pieces on this Bills offense, and to be able to kind of put in that work with another guy who knows what it's like to practice, play, put on for the city of Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's the dope part about it is like you do have a lot of trainers who may not have walked that same path, but he's somebody who did it and did it at an elite level, so I know everything he's telling me, everything that he has me doing is for a reason, and he likes to mess with me a lot if, something happens within a drill, he'll make a joke of how he would outwork me back in the day and all that type of stuff. So there's a lot of, trash talking going on there, and that's motivating, just to be, as good as he was, and to learn from him and his run after catch and his, his hands, and his ability just to get open and make plays. It's an everyday work process with him.
How much fun are you guys having right now?
A lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. The vibe is great. It's, when you're around great people, and you got people who want to play for each other, I think that's the most important thing. You got guys who want to play for their brother to the right and left of them. And I think that's the most important thing. McDermott talks about just team. He'll just say team. And that means just, you're going to do whatever your job is on that play to make that play work for the brother to your right and to your left, So a lot of guys who want to make stuff work for each other and play for each other.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. Once again, if Khalil Shakir catches the first pass that he has thrown here this evening, he will set an NFL record, 28 receptions on 28 straight targets dating back to last year. Well, we're going to wrap things up here on this special edition of Sports Talk Live. Vic Carucci joining me once again, and we'll have our final thoughts out of the Bills and Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Okay. All right, just Vic, let's touch on. All right, let's touch a little bit on maybe the games today. Kansas City is struggling, the Jets lose, and then we'll get into our final thoughts on this game. Does that work?
Yes.
All right.
Perfect. Perfect.
Now back to Sports Talk Live Buffalo, sponsored by Celino Law.
People are starting to believe in the Bills and their strategy of spreading the ball around to a number of different receivers. I, for one, agree with that strategy. I see the Bills going up early against the Ravens and taking Derrick Henry out of the game. Buffalo 30, the Ravens 16.
Our last take, sponsored by Lake Effect Furniture and Mattress.
All right, we're inching closer here to kickoff between the Bills and the Ravens here on Sunday Night Football. Vic, the inactives out here for the Bills, and Joe Andreessen once again will be suiting up for his hometown Buffalo Bills. I'm sure the party in Lancaster is certainly going to love that. We saw him on special teams even get in late in the game in the blowout a week ago. Mike Edwards, as we discussed leading into the Jacksonville game, will once again be a healthy scratch. Vic, looking around here, they've had red zone up in front of me here throughout the afternoon. It's been some wild games around the league, including the Jets losing and the Chiefs really struggling against the Chargers. What have you seen from the slate of early games today?
Yeah, let's talk about the Jets just for a moment. Aaron Rodgers, after that encouraging performance of the way he was moving around and making throws, encouraging to the Jets is what I mean. We didn't see any of that really this time around and got sacked, I think, 5 times. And after about the 4th sack, 4 or 5 times, but near the end of the game, he got up slow, and that might be something to look at. Kansas City struggling, but I think the real headline out of that game, Rashee Rice, their top receiver, wide receiver, suffering a knee injury in a collision with Patrick Mahomes in an attempt to recover a fumble. Andy Reid told the sideline reporter that it didn't look good, so we'll see where that goes.
I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be another gif here. He put his hat over his head like this at the end of the game and kind of slid down on his chair. I think the Mafia will probably be finding that one all over social media moving forward. Let's get back to this game, Vic. Bills and the Ravens, we've had so much discussion here, but really, in your opinion, what does it boil down to?
Yeah, to me, it boils down to defensively not letting Lamar Jackson take it over. Even if they get an early lead and aren't able to keep it, which again is the Raven way, don't put yourself in that kind of hole for Buffalo, especially when you're on the road. And then the second part of it is Josh finding those answers in that secondary because they're out there. I think they're able to be exploited. And I think Joe Brady will have a pretty sound attack. I think he should stick to the run game, even if it'll be more difficult to get it going. And then proceed from there. Let the passing game open up. But I think Josh is showing to me more command, more control, and more efficiency than we've seen of him on a consistent basis. He was a great quarterback before this season, but I think he's elevating if that's possible.
I agree with you. I think defensively, I'm going to be curious how much Baltimore tries to maybe play into the scheme that Arizona did in the first half, with Kyler Murray, a dual-threat quarterback, and the power running of James Conner, because that was incredibly effective out the gate, and maybe some of that was, all right, it's the first half of the first game of the season, Bills knocking off some rust, or maybe they found something there. Baltimore certainly has the personnel in Lamar and Derrick Henry to work out a plan exactly like that. Tackling is also going to be incredibly, incredibly important. Vic, let's get a prediction for you.
Yeah, I'm going Bills, and I don't know that it's going to be all that difficult. I'm not saying blowout, but I think it'll be a Buffalo win.
I'm going to go with the Bills as well, and it's incredible to think that not only would they then go to 4-0, but that would put the Ravens at 1-3, and again, as we kind of touched on off the top, that would mean the AFC is really topsy-turvy and not anything like after the first month, probably many of us expected. Well, that's going to do it here for this special edition of Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Join us right back here on Channel 2 after the game. Enjoy.